This was the summer of 2013. I was a Marine deployed to Helmand Province, Afghanistan, the southern part. I had been attached to a platoon of combat engineers. We were direct support for 2nd Battalion, 8th Marines, a big unit, couple hundred Marines in total. My platoon had 42 guys. We were kind of separate from the rest. We had our own setup, our own COC, motor pool, armory, even a volleyball court. We shared our lot with EOD. They were way at the other end. We didn't talk to them much, but they seemed chill. Most of the time, one squad from my platoon would stay behind at Dwire while the rest went out with infantry. The squad that stayed back manned the COC, stocked up on dip and cigarettes, got to sleep in containers with AC. Some guys loved that. I hated it. I liked being in the dirt. I liked the field. Sitting on base bored the hell out of me. But the gym was sick, so that helped a little. I had been out for months straight, 2 back-to-back missions. I was given a month on Dwire. Felt like punishment. Everyone else was far north on a mission. My squad was left behind. So there we were, pulling fire watch at night. One guy stayed awake while others slept. Guard duty basically, just in case anything popped off. I was on shift one night. It was me, Corporal W, and our platoon guide, Sergeant D. Our COC was this long wooden building called a SWA hut. I don't even know what SWA means, but that was the name. It sat in the northeast corner of our fenced lot. The fence was about 15 or 20 feet high, barbed wire on top. The space between the COC and the northern fence was maybe 20 feet. The space on the eastern side was more like 40. We were crammed into that corner. On the eastern side, we had some tents up. Dog handlers used them sometimes. Visitors mostly. I was posted at the far end of the hut. The door I was near faced straight through the building. You could see all the way to the other end. It was about 50 feet long. That night, the 3 of us were standing outside, smoking, joking around, which was rare since those 2 outranked me. But that kind of formality dies off a bit toward the end of deployment. We were looking through the COC. Lights were on inside, and then we saw him. A man walked past the far door of the hut, calm and casual, like he belonged there. Caucasian, trimmed beard, boonie cover, M16. I remember every detail. We froze, looked at each other, then sprang into action. Sergeant D sprinted around the north side. Corporal W went through the hut. I went around the south side. We were fast. We all linked up right where that man should have been. No more than 10 seconds had passed. No one was there. No sign of anyone. Nothing. Sergeant D had reached the exact spot the man had been walking toward. If someone had been there, he would have seen him. I looked out past the fence. Wide open desert. Empty. Just sand and moonlight. We checked every tent. Nothing. Not a single soul. We stood there in silence for a moment. Then I remembered something strange. That man's uniform. It was tricolor. Desert pattern. Invasion-era stuff from 2001. We didn't wear that anymore. The only ones who might have that were MARSOC guys. But even they rarely showed up on Dwire. I told them what I saw. They looked at me, didn't say much, just kind of nodded, like we all knew but didn't want to say it. Corporal W made a joke, said he was going to bed, left me there, alone. I stayed quiet for a bit, still standing near the hut, trying to wrap my head around what happened. Eventually a contractor came by, just to talk. Some civilian we shared the lot with. His timing was weird, but it helped, made me feel less alone. We talked a bit, then he left. I stayed up for a while. Then I thought, screw it. If that thing wants to kill me, then it kills me. I went to sleep. We never saw that ghost again. Never talked about it either. Not like it was some secret. It just kind of faded from memory. Life kept moving. Missions. Routines. Days blurred together. But here's what makes it stick with me. About a week later, our COC caught fire. Burned to the ground. No warning. No explanation. And the fire started right at the spot where that guy had been walking toward, right where he disappeared. Coincidence maybe. Could have been EOD playing some weird joke, but I don't think so. The speed at which we reached that corner, the uniform, the vibe, it felt off, like we had witnessed something that didn't belong to our world. To this day I don't know what we saw, but I know we saw him, and I know we couldn't explain it. I served in the United States Marines from 2003 to 2007. These two things happened to me during the same deployment, but at different times. I was in Iraq. We were based at a forward operating base in Fallujah. I was a radio operator, and I had been pulled from my regular assignment and attached to a grunt unit. My job was to run their communications. I had to upload crypto keys and make sure the generators stayed on, 24 hours a day. If the power went out, then we lost communications. We lost access to computers. We were cut off, so my job was important. I was young. I didn't always show it, but I knew it. One night I was inside the building and one of the generators shut down. I grabbed my gear and ran downstairs to the area where they kept the fuel lines and units. I tried restarting the one that had gone out. I pressed the button and nothing happened. I checked the fuel and it was low. I topped it off. Still nothing. I kicked the thing, cursed at it, slammed the side of the panel and yelled a few more choice words. Then I heard a voice. Clear, calm, familiar. It said, "You watch your mouth, young man." It was my grandmother. I heard her voice as if she was standing right next to me. Not a whisper, not a memory, a real voice in my ears. I didn't even stop to think. I just shouted back and said, "Well, Grandma, maybe you can get this blanking generator started before I lose comms." I pressed the button again. The generator turned on instantly. I stood there for a second, just staring at the panel as it hummed to life, the noise of it almost comforting. I don't know if she did something, or if it was just chance, but that moment stayed with me. My grandmother passed away when I was in the 6th grade. I hadn't thought about her in a long time. We weren't that close. Not because I didn't care. We just didn't see each other much. Holidays. Maybe once a year. A weekend here or there. But somehow in that moment her voice was the clearest thing I'd heard all day. I finished my shift. Got things running. I didn't tell anyone what happened. Not right away. The second thing happened weeks later. This was closer to the end of our deployment. Our unit was getting ready to head home. People were relaxed. You could feel it. The tension wasn't as thick. We were back at base and everyone was laying around on those green military cots. The room was bright. People were talking and laughing. Marines telling stories and killing time. The noise was constant. That background chatter of dozens of voices. I remember thinking it felt almost normal. I found an empty cot and laid down, closed my eyes, just to rest for a second. I wasn't even trying to sleep. I just wanted to stop looking at the same ceiling and walls. A moment passed, maybe two. I opened my eyes again. I looked to my left, and he was standing there. My grandfather, he was right beside me, clear as anything. I saw every detail of his face, his clothes, the way he stood, the soft smile. He wasn't young. He looked the way I remembered him from childhood. He didn't say anything out loud, but I heard him. He spoke into my mind. He said, "We are all very proud of you, and you have been protected." That was it. I told him, "Thank you, Grandpa. I love you too." I wasn't scared. I wasn't shocked. I felt calm. I felt surrounded by this warmth I can't describe, like being wrapped in something gentle and strong at the same time. It was peaceful. It was beautiful. And then he was gone. Just like that. He disappeared without moving. 1 second he was there, and the next he wasn't. I sat up, looked around the room. Everyone was still talking, still joking. No one else had seen what I just experienced. And the thing is, I wasn't close to my grandfather either. Not really. I didn't grow up with him around. I saw him maybe once or twice a year. I didn't even get to attend his funeral. I was working at the time and couldn't get the day off. Yet he was the one who appeared to me. I kept thinking about that. Why him? Why her? Why then? And all I can say is I believe now. I believe that there's more to this world than we see. I believe that we are watched over, protected, guided in ways we may never understand. I never asked for a sign. I never prayed for a vision. But I got one anyway. Two, in fact, from people I barely knew, but people who were tied to me by blood. Maybe that was enough. I didn't need anything else after that. No explanations, no science. I felt what I felt, I saw what I saw, and it gave me peace. It gave me faith. Not in religion, not in any specific belief, just faith that death is not the end. I was a sergeant in the United States Army, and I had just finished my time in service when President Bush called for more troops to head back into Iraq in 2003. I had come home to Austin, Texas. I was planning my transition out of the military when I got called back into my local National Guard unit based out of Camp Mabry. The unit had already been assigned a deployment to Iraq, but I wasn't officially part of it yet. Their commander sat me down and told me I could either join them or take a waiver and go work with a government contractor. That contractor was Halliburton, based out of Houston. I knew I could make more money as a contractor, and I was still technically in the Guard, so I took the waiver and accepted the offer. It wasn't long after that I ended up in Kuwait working out of Camp Doha. My job was with the operations team, and we were responsible for managing daily convoys, running supplies from Kuwait into Baghdad. It was one of the most dangerous routes in the region, and full of incidents. There were IEDs constantly being placed on the road. There were small arms attacks. Sometimes vehicles would just break down in the middle of nowhere. We had to be ready for everything. Since I had been a CO gunner back when I was with the 1st Infantry Division, one got pulled to ride along with some of the convoys. Even though I was a contractor now, I still had the skills and they needed help. Most of the people in the convoys were civilians, truck drivers mostly, but I manned a mounted weapon and helped provide security. It wasn't long before I started to hear weird stories about a place called Camp Babylon. It was south of Baghdad and had been occupied by French forces earlier in the war. By the time I got there, it had been labeled an archaeological zone. People said it was the same spot where the Tower of Babel once stood. The ruins around there looked ancient and massive, like something had been built there a long time ago, and then wiped from existence. The first strange thing that happened to me was in the middle of the afternoon. We were passing through Camp Babylon on a convoy when someone started shooting at us. Nothing major, just small arms fire. The standard procedure at the time was to stop the convoy and return fire. This was because sometimes the enemy would try to scare you into speeding forward and crashing into an IED, so we stopped, got out, took positions, and waited. While the engineers searched for anything suspicious on the road, we kept our eyes on the ruins. We never saw anyone shooting at us, but there were shapes moving in the ruins, shadowy figures darting around, not fast, but not slow either. And every time we tried to focus on one of them, it would vanish behind a wall or down a path. I remember lying there next to another contractor with our rifles ready. He turned to me and said something strange. He said it was odd we were in the shadow of the Tower of Babel and might be fighting something supernatural. I didn't know what to say to that. I knew he was a Mason and into all that arcane stuff. I didn't want to encourage him, but I also couldn't deny what I had seen. Those shapes weren't normal. They were too small to be adults, but they moved like they were alive. Eventually, the engineers cleared the road and we rolled on to Baghdad. I didn't forget the figures, but I chalked it up to fatigue or nerves. That was until we went back through Camp Babylon again. About a month later, it was winter now. Cold at night. This time we were heading back to Kuwait after a long supply run, and one of the vehicles in our convoy broke down right near the same place. So we stopped again, set up a perimeter. Mechanics went to work. I was out in the cold, watching the horizon. My SEO loaded and slung in front of me. Then I saw something strange. A soft light glowing in the distance. I thought it was a flashlight at first. Maybe someone was walking toward us. I got out my NVGs and looked closer. It wasn't a person, it was just a glowing orb. It hovered above the ground and floated toward the ruins, like it was alive, like it had a purpose. Me and a couple other guys moved forward to get a better look. The light didn't respond to us. It didn't change speed, just kept moving toward the ancient stones. That's when the sound started. A long, low wail, like a woman crying in pain. Not a scream, not a howl, just this terrible sound that felt like it was pulling something out of your chest. It was constant. It echoed across the desert. It came from one of the ruined foundations nearby. We tried to spotlight the area. With NVGs, a flashlight looks like a huge floodlight. We scanned every inch of the ruins. Nothing moved. No source of the sound. No person. No animal. Nothing. The light was gone too. Just gone, like it never existed. Then the call came in over the radio. The mechanics had fixed the vehicle. Time to get back in and move out. I was slinging my weapon over my shoulder when I noticed the contractor next to me wasn't moving. He was just standing there, staring at the ruins, frozen, like his brain shut down. I had to physically shake him to get him to respond. He blinked and looked around, then hurried back with the rest of us like nothing happened. The next day back at camp, it was warmer. We were drinking coffee, waiting for the daily ops brief. A few of us started talking about what happened the night before. I remembered that guy and how he froze up, so I asked him about it. He looked uncomfortable. Then he told us what he saw. He said as we were pulling out, he looked back and saw a figure standing near the ruins. A tall black figure. It wasn't moving. It was just watching us. It wasn't a person. It wasn't human. He said the moment he saw it, he felt like his soul was being pulled out of him, like he was about to die. Then everything went blank. The next thing he remembered was being back inside the Humvee, headed for Kuwait. That was the last time I ever went through Camp Babylon. I don't know what was out there. I don't care what anyone says. Something was watching us. Something ancient. Something that didn't want us there.
If you liked the video, don't forget to like and share. Subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos like this.